All right, today we're going to talk about a guy who completely flipped our understanding of language on its head. His name was Ferdinand de Saussure, and honestly, once you see language his way, you can't unsee it. So let's start with what sounds like a super simple question. What is a word? No, really, just take a second and think about it. You're probably thinking, well, it's a label, right? There's a world out there full of things and feelings, and we just slap words on them. Tree, rock, love. Makes perfect sense. And for centuries, that's pretty much what everyone thought. But then Saussure comes along and basically says, what if that's totally backward? What if language isn't a collection of labels for things that already exist? What if it's more like a giant hidden game, a self-contained system where every single piece only gets its meaning from all the other pieces on the board? And that right there, that was his huge revolutionary idea. We need to stop obsessing over individual words and start looking at the whole thing, the entire language as one complete, interconnected system. See, before Saussure, linguists were basically word historians. They'd study language diachronically, which is a fancy way of saying they'd track how one word changed over hundreds of years. Saussure said, that's cool, but you're missing the forest for the trees. He proposed we should also study language synchronically, like taking a snapshot of the entire language system as it exists right now to see how all the parts fit together and work. And you want to know how serious he was about this? In his most important book, which, by the way, was actually put together from his students' notes after he died, the word system shows up 138 times. That tells you everything. For Saussure, it was all about the system. Now, to get this idea across, he used this absolutely brilliant analogy, a chess game. So picture a chessboard. That's the state of a language right now. Every piece has its place, its power. Okay, now just move one single piece, a tiny little pawn move. What just happened? Well, suddenly the power of the queen, the threat of that bishop, the safety of your king, the value of every single piece on that board has changed, even just a little bit. Language, he said, works exactly like that. So you might be wondering, if language is this massive system, where do I, the individual speaker, fit into all this? Well, to tackle that, Saussure gave us his first big famous distinction, langue and parole. Okay, so langue is the system itself. It's the abstract rulebook, the shared grammar, the whole vocabulary that lives in the collective mind of a community. Parole, on the other hand, is the actual game in action. It's you right now saying something. It's the individual, concrete act of using the system. You can't really have one without the other, but Saussure insisted that if we want to be scientific about it, we have to study the hidden system, the langue. Okay, so if langue is the system, what are the pieces of the game? Saussure called them linguistic signs, and his breakdown of what a sign is just completely demolishes that old words or labels idea we started with. First, he had to get rid of the old way of thinking. He called it nomenclature, this, simplistic idea that the world is full of pre-made concepts, and language just comes along and attaches word labels to them. Saussure said that's just wrong, because it assumes we can think without language. Instead, he said a sign is made of two parts. First, there's the signifier. Now, this is not the actual physical sound waves of me saying the word tree. It's the psychological imprint of that sound, the sound image you have in your head. And the second part is the signified. Again, this is not the actual physical leafy tree outside your window. It's the concept of a tree in your mind. So get this. Both parts, the sound image and the concept, are completely mental. They're in your head. The sign is the fusion of these two things. And Saussure's metaphor here is just perfect. He said it's like a sheet of paper. The signifier is one side, the signified is the other. You literally cannot have one without the other. Try to cut the front without cutting the back? You can't. They are a single two-sided psychological thing. All right, so what's the glue that holds the sound image and the concept together? This brings us to Saussure's most famous and maybe his most mind-blowing idea. The link is completely arbitrary. There is zero natural reason why the sound tree should be connected to the concept of a tree. I mean, think about it. There's nothing ox-like about the sound buffet in French or ox in German. It's just a convention that a community agrees on. If the link were natural, we'd all be using the same words for everything, and we obviously don't. Now, this idea of arbitrariness was huge, but it also kicked off this really interesting debate. I mean, is that connection really completely arbitrary?
A later thinker named Émile Benveniste made this really sharp clarification. He said, look, for us linguists on the outside, yeah, the link seems random. But for you, as a speaker of English, the bond between the sound tree and the idea of a tree feels totally necessary. It's automatic. You can't just decide tomorrow to call it a glorp. So Benveniste argued the real arbitrary connection isn't inside the sign, it's between the whole sign, that mental unit, and the actual physical tree out there in the world.
So if the link is arbitrary, where on earth does meaning come from? And this is where it gets really wild. Saussure says meaning comes from what he called linguistic value. And here it is. A word doesn't have meaning because of what it is. It has meaning because of what it is not. Its identity comes purely from being different from all the other words in the system. Okay, here's the classic example that makes it all click. In English, we have the word sheep for the animal in the field, but when it's on our plate, we call it mutton. The word sheep has a specific value because it's defined against mutton. Now in French, they just use one word for both, mouton. So does mouton mean the exact same thing as sheep? No, not really. Its value, its meaning, is different because it doesn't have the word mutton pushing up against it, defining its borders. The shock waves from these ideas were just immense. Saussure's way of thinking, of always looking for the hidden structure of the system, blew way past the study of language. And he left us with this beautiful paradox. On the one hand, for you and me, language is immutable. It's this massive, fixed system we inherit. We can't just wake up and change it. But at the same time, it's totally mutable. Over the years, the unconscious collective speech acts of millions of people cause the system to constantly drift and change. It's a rock and it's a river, all at once. This whole focus on the underlying system, the hidden rules of the game, became the foundation for a huge intellectual movement called structuralism. Suddenly, you had anthropologists like Claude Lévi-Strauss looking for the grammar of myths, literary critics looking for the structure of novels. It was everywhere. And this is where Saussure leaves us, with a really deep and unsettling question. If every word, every sign, gets its meaning only by being different from every other sign in this endless web of relationships, then what does any single word really mean, all by itself? That's a question that still keeps people up at night.